Hi Absarokee friends, my name is Educator Katie.
And I am Educator Emily.
And we're here at ZooMontana, and we are so excited to be telling you about some really awesome animal-related careers. You're going to be coming to the zoo later today, and you're going to have an adaptations pamphlet to guide you through the zoo on your very own. But before you come and learn about some awesome animals, we wanted to talk to you about careers. So you'll probably get a career pamphlet as well.
While filming, we wanted to make sure that social distancing protocols were in place in such a way that our interviewees would be able to talk without their masks. Not only does this make them slightly easier to hear, but we also want to make these videos as accessible as possible for everybody. So videos were either filmed solo, using a tripod, or with social distancing measures in place.
All right, friends, we're gonna go get started. Enjoy these interviews and definitely write down any questions you have because you'll have our contact info after. Here we go.
Hi guys, my name is Allison. I've been here at ZooMontana for 3 years. I'm one of the zookeepers here, and I'm actually the lead wetlands keeper, and I'm also the zoo's training and enrichment coordinator.
Hey guys, I'm Jeff the Nature Guy. I am the executive director here at ZooMontana, and I have been in the zoo world for 21 years. I'm old.
Hi everyone, my name is Katie and I'm the education coordinator here at ZooMontana. I have been in the fields of education and wildlife biology and just general biology for over 8 years.
Hi, my name's Alanna. I'm the newest relief keeper at ZooMontana. I have been working with animals for about 2.5 years, and I have been here for about a week and a half.
My name is Emily. I'm the education specialist here at ZooMontana, and I've been in the fields of education and zoology combined for a total of about 6 years.
So I got involved with the zoo world young in my life. I was actually in the 6th grade. I volunteered at an animal facility, and at the end of the day I volunteered there. It was for a school project. I remember the gentleman I was helping put an owl on my hand, and at that moment I was hooked. I knew I wanted to work with animals. Once I graduated or when I was going to college, I volunteered at a rehab center where we rehabilitated injured animals, and then at the same time I worked at the Columbus Zoo over in Ohio, but I didn't work with animals right off the bat. I started off in the concession stand. So I cooked hamburgers and I poured Pepsi, and I got to know people, and finally landed a job working in the barn. So I worked with horses and goats and those kind of cool animals to start out my career. Shortly thereafter, I then got a job working with birds, and that's what I'm a bird nerd. I love birds, and I worked with birds for the next 12 years. That took me to Tampa, Florida, and then from Tampa, Florida, I moved here to Montana, and now I'm directing here at ZooMontana. It's been quite a whirlwind, but a fun career at that.
So I actually originally started out in college as an international studies and language major. So I quickly changed over to biology for a couple different reasons, partly because I'd always been interested in animals and in plants. And then I actually got my first internship at a place called the Buffalo Bill Center of the West in Cody, Wyoming, working with their raptor program. And that was my very first introduction to actually physically working with animals and also in an educational setting.
I always knew that I wanted to be a zookeeper ever since I was a tiny kid, and then I went through a brief stage when I wanted to be a vet. So honestly, when I was in middle school, I was supposed to do a project where I researched a college that I wanted to go to, and I researched Moore Park College. It's got a zoo school there, and that's where I knew I wanted to go ever since. And when I went there, they do specialized training in other zoos, like little internships, and that's actually kind of how I wormed my way in here, as I did an internship out here.
I've always loved animals. I've always thought the natural world was absolutely amazing, and I've always loved carnivores specifically. So I'm that person who roots for the lion and not the gazelle. But I decided to pursue a degree in zoology at Michigan State University to try and study these carnivores. While I was there, I found out about the Michigan State University Mara Hyena Project, and I volunteered with that project throughout my undergraduate career, collecting behavioral and demographic data in the laboratory from field notes collected in their field site in Kenya.
So I have always loved animals since I was little, and then in high school I actually did a volunteer trip to a wolf sanctuary in Colorado, and I decided that that was a good fit after all, because even though it was a lot of hard work and really kind of gross stuff, I still loved it and was happy doing it. So that's why I decided to follow through on studying that in college. So I did get my bachelor's in zoology from University of Wyoming, and then after that I started with a couple of internships. I worked at a black bear sanctuary and then a big cat sanctuary, and then right before here I was at Cheyenne Mountain Zoo in the education department for a year and a half.
So I've got a degree in exotic animal training and management from Moore Park College, that's in California. There's 2 zoo schools in the country that are pretty widely recognized. One's in California, one's in Florida. So I went to the one in California because I'm actually from there. So once I graduated there, I went on to work for a TV show called Lucky Dog, where I learned all about dog training. And then after that, I got hired at the San Diego Zoo, working with their ambassador animals. And I fell in love with Montana many years ago, so I finally just made the decision to come out here, and I haven't regretted it since.
So I have a bachelor's of science in zoology with concentrations in animal behavior as well as ecology, evolution, and organismal biology. After I completed my degree, I continued to work for the Michigan State University Mara Hyena Project as a field research assistant for a year. This meant that I got to live in a remote field camp in Kenya in the Masai Mara National Reserve and study populations of spotted hyenas for a year. So I got to know about 130 different individuals, learn their spot patterns, their behaviors, their family workings, and I got to work with the local communities there as well to advocate for their conservation, which was absolutely amazing. It was a beautiful, life-changing experience. However, after that, I did decide to become an educator, and I worked in South Carolina first for a field season there as a field instructor in kind of an outdoor school setting. So I would take kids out to the salt marsh. We would go crabbing, cast netting, talk about the animals that we caught. We'd go catch fiddler crabs. We'd go out to barrier islands and talk about barrier island ecology. And then after that, I wanted to work a little bit more with animals, so I decided to start working here at ZooMontana.
So skills that would be useful in this field is definitely dedication and determination. I know everyone says that about basically anything, but it's very true in working with animals. There's not a lot of immediate reward in working with animals, so it's very important to be self-motivated. And it's also important to be willing to learn as much as you are willing to educate others, because ultimately, especially in zookeeping, but any time you're working with animals, it's not about your pride, it's not about your ego, it's about that animal and their care and their welfare and their health. So being willing to set aside how you're feeling about something and learn dedicatedly for your animals and for for everyone else around you, that's really important to be able to do, and that's not always easy to do.
You know, so for me, the skills that are useful for me, and I say this to everybody, no matter what career you want to go into, learn public speaking. Get comfortable talking in front of other people, because that is going to take you so far. So public speaking, by far, I think is the most important trait when it comes to the career here at the zoo. But other than that, knowledge, animal knowledge, knowing how to read animals, that's really skillful. People skills, that's really important to me because I do a lot of fundraising here, so I try to raise money for the zoo. So I have to know, have those people skills, being able to talk to people one-on-one's really important. So there's a lot that we need to do here at the zoo. So many different skills, technical skills, building skills. We have to have a lot of different skills to work at a zoo.
I would say a surprising thing about zookeeping that people don't often think about is that a lot of zookeepers, including myself, don't actually want to see these animals in a zoo. I would much rather these animals be out in their natural habitat doing their thing, but unfortunately there is less and less, and in some animals' cases there's no wild habitat for these animals to go. So that's why zoos have animals, is to show people that, hey, these animals are really amazing. This is why you should protect them in the wild. And these animals, even if we did put them out in the wild, they wouldn't know what to do. They rely on human care. So we have to kind of provide that home for them.
I think one of the things that people don't realize about zookeeping is the level of care that even small animals get. So when I was working in the other education department at Cheyenne Mountain Zoo, we had tiny little beetles that were the size of your fingernail, and even they got top-notch vet care. So all of these animals get really good care from their keepers and vets as well.
The surprising thing about zookeeping that many people don't think about is how much work is cleaning up poop.
So I'm a bird nerd. I love birds. I love raptors. So hawks, eagles, vultures. I love them. And when it comes down, if you want to dig even deeper, I'm a vulture guy. I always have been. Vultures are just so cool. They're so gross, but they're incredibly intelligent animals. And so when you're training them, you learn from them. So vultures are high on my list. And other than that, manatees. I miss working with manatees. Obviously, there's no manatees here in Montana, but I worked with them in Florida, and they were an amazing animal that, again, I think humans can learn a lot from manatees. They're just so gentle. So manatees and vultures, my two favorite.
So my favorite animal to work with has to be spotted hyenas, even though it was not in like a zoo setting. Getting to know them on such an intimate level for a year was truly amazing. So they are definitely my favorite animal to work with.
I have worked with a lot of raptors, so birds of prey. I've also gotten to work with almost every animal here at the zoo, at least in some minor capacity. I really love working with raptors. However, the snakes are my favorite.
If you don't want to be a zookeeper, there are a bunch of other fields that you could do. You could be a vet for like domestic animals. You could be an exotic vet and work with zoos. You could be an educator who works in a zoological setting, much like what I do. You don't have to pick up as much poop that way. You could be a researcher where you're either in a lab or out in the field studying an animal and its behavior or some natural phenomenon. You could even be a science writer, like a journalist or someone for National Geographic, or even a photographer.
So one thing I wish I knew before going into this career is that it is not a career where you're going to make a ton of money. You do it all for the passion of the animals.
Be willing to work for free. So when I was looking for internships, I only looked for internships where I would get some kind of stipend, like maybe a little bit of money to help me out each week, or housing. And that really limited my options because unfortunately those are very hard to come by. So if you can find even somewhere local and you can stay at home and just get some kind of animal experience, that'll help a ton. I wish I had known that.
The best advice that I wish I would have gotten and that I give every day today is volunteer. Volunteer, volunteer, volunteer. And again, it doesn't matter what area of animal or what area of work you want to go to. It doesn't even have to be animal work. But volunteering is so important for two reasons. One, it shows those of us in charge, it shows me here at the zoo, that you want to give up what's most valuable to you, and that's your time, to better the cause. And that is dedication like no other. So that is huge, and that is a good way to get your foot in the door and get hired at a facility. Number two, and I think more importantly, is volunteering lets you make sure that this is what you want to do. I've had so many people come and volunteer here at the zoo and they walk away saying, you know what, that was fun, but it's not for me. There was maybe too much poop to clean up, or maybe that animal was too scary. And instead of wasting your time and going through all this schooling because you think you want to do something, this will let you know for sure if it's what you want to do. So volunteer, volunteer, volunteer. By far the most important piece of advice I can give you.
I think that time management, but also taking care of yourself, because zoos and animal care require a lot of you, and to be able to give of yourself, you have to take care of yourself. So not overextending yourself. And most of the people who work here are very helpful people. We're always like, yes, I want to help you with this. But that also means that eventually you're going to take on too much. And that will either mean that you suffer, your animal's care might suffer, your work might suffer. So being able to notice when you need to take care of yourself and when it's okay to say no is a super important piece of advice that I wish I'd had a long time ago.
And if I could have been given one piece of advice when I started my career, it would actually be two pieces of advice. The first one is if you never ask, the answer is always going to be no. So don't be afraid to send those emails. Don't be afraid to try and make those connections. Literally before I worked with the Mara Hyena Project, I think I cold emailed 10 people and just was like, hey, oh my God, your work is so cool. Please put me in your lab. And it worked. So if I had never done that, I might not be here today. So please don't be afraid to make those connections, reach out, show your enthusiasm, and people will respond positively. Second thing is always be able to go with the flow. Things will change. Don't be afraid of that change. Honestly, I never saw myself being an educator, but I love it. I think this is actually a better use of my skills than being a researcher. So if your path changes, know that that's totally okay. As long as the work that you are doing is meaningful to you and you feel like it is making a meaningful impact to the world, that is really all that matters.